a great article today. The headline is, Israel's Netanyahu brings his dirty laundry to Washington. Literally. Now, what this is about is apparently when you are staying here in the guest house for visitors,
I remember
your
this.
laundry's done. And here's a quote from the story. Quote, "The Netanyahus are the only ones who bring actual suitcases of dirty laundry for us to clean," said one U.S. official. After multiple trips, it became clear this was intentional. This has been
a thing for a while.
These people are so fucking petty that, like, okay, it's one thing if it's like you're at a hotel. And well, actually, the hotels I stay at,
it's like your kids coming home from college.
Yeah, but exactly. Like, these guys are packing up dirty laundry.
Trash bags.
Give me a break.
Full of laundry.
This is who we're talking about with Benjamin and Sarah Netanyahu. The other quote I wanted to read is from Jerry Nadler, because I read it on the way in here. Benjamin Netanyahu is the worst leader in Jewish history since the Maccabean king who invited the Romans into Jerusalem over 2,100 years ago. All right, I'm just going to stop it there. It's a longer tweet.
That's a good
I just
quote.
thought that was like a massive swing by Jerry Nadler. Represents my Upper West Side district of my heart.
Jerry Nads with a historic deep cut.
But yeah, like, look, I actually think one of the interesting things here is, when Netanyahu came in 2015, it was the biggest story in American politics for weeks.
Right.
That he did this.
Leading up to it and
it
after,
was this kind of huge thing.
Well, it was in the middle of the JCPOA process, too.
He's not having that impact this time. There's a kind of exhaustion with him as a personality. Obviously, we have massive political drama happening in this country. It is kind of like, what is he doing here? Like, there's kind of a feeling of like, this again, this guy again, And so the Republicans think it's like some massive, and I actually think they're wrong on the politics. Like, if they think that, they're going to win over Jewish voters. Like, I don't think so. I think Jewish voters in this country have made up their minds about Netanyahu, and most of them fucking hate the guy. Yeah. Just like in Israel, by the way, right? And so I don't think it's like some big coup for them, frankly. So for all the more reason to just boycott it. I don't think you're going to like pay some big price with voters. Like, there's no reason to listen to what this guy has to say because he's gaslighting, He's just hanging on to power the same way like Trump is trying to cling back to power. And I just don't think there's any reason to pay much attention to it. Yeah,
and that's not his only event while he's here. So he's going to meet with Biden and Harris bilaterally. Netanyahu is also expected to meet with Trump at Mar-a-Lago, I think, on Friday. This obviously comes at a challenging political time for Joe Biden, where considering he just stepped back and isn't going to run again. But things aren't exactly going well for Bibi, as you mentioned. I mean, a recent poll found that 72% of Israelis want him to resign. Maybe Biden can give him some advice.
Not exactly coming here with strong political capital.
About that. We reached out to our friend.
Biden can teach him how to say goodbye.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
Quote a little Hamilton there.
Israelis would love that.
Lib fantasy.
We reached out to our friend Amir טיבון, who's an excellent journalist at Haaretz, to get his take on Netanyahu's speech. Let's listen because we wanted an Israeli perspective on this.
For the Republican Speaker of the House to give Netanyahu this invitation to come to Congress in the first place was a blatant intervention in our internal affairs. This is all about Netanyahu's own political survival. It's about him trying to recover the political ground that he has lost since the epic failure that happened under his watch on October 7th. All the Democratic lawmakers who are planning to go to this theatrical political speech on Wednesday, they are basically going to turn themselves into the stage crew of a partisan event meant to help one politician internally in Israel at a time of great division in this country. And again, at the end of the day, it's either you stand with the families of the hostages who are protesting out on the streets every day almost here in Israel for a deal and against this far-right Netanyahu government, or you choose to stand with Netanyahu. And I think it's clear where these lawmakers decided to place themselves. Any Democratic politician who would bother to devote 5 minutes to this issue and read some polling from Israel and talk to families of hostages and talk to people like myself who are survivors of the October 7 attack. And I lost 15 friends and neighbors on that day. My family was almost murdered. If you just take 5 minutes to understand and to listen to these voices from Israel, you will understand why supporting Israel at this moment is crucial and important, but supporting Netanyahu is the opposite. And sadly, I think a lot of lawmakers are not going to do that homework.
That is so powerful.
Good advice.
Yeah. Like he said, and we revisited his story after October 7th. I mean, this is someone who, believes deeply in the profound trauma and existential sense of insecurity that Israelis felt after October 7th.
Just to be good, Amir was trapped in a safe room with his wife and their 3-year-old daughter for 8 hours.
So this isn't some guy who doesn't get it.
While
right?
Hamas, his own father had to drive down from Tel Aviv to save his life, to fight his way into a war zone and save his life. It's the most incredible story I've ever heard.
Yeah. And what he said, if you think you're supporting Israel, you're not. You're just supporting this guy. Yep. Listen to that message, Democrats. Like, why be like he wants to put this veneer, this sheen of bipartisanship over his like extreme far right politics and his clear preference for Donald Trump in this election in a few months. No reason to legitimize this guy.
No. And the reality is he has done more to damage the bipartisan nature of the U.S.-Israel relations than any other leader in history.
By far. And Israel will be much better off. America will be better off. The world will be better off when Israel can turn the page on this guy, just like we're trying to turn the page on Trump here. And look, we should just say, like, and Bernie mentioned in his comment, the man is like, being charged as a war criminal by the International Criminal Court. It is not the best look for the U.S. Congress to be, whatever you think about the ICC, that is the reality. And the ICJ, by the way, just made another ruling about apartheid.
West Bank and East Jerusalem settlements were deemed illegal. The occupation was deemed illegal.
And so the message it sends to the world is that we don't care about any of this, that we're okay with that kind of hypocrisy. So better to just, have this be as low profile as possible, as few Democrats as possible. And I guarantee you, it is not the political winner the Republicans think it is, because this man is not like wildly popular in the American Jewish community. So it's just not worth it.
Yeah, and it's also, I think it's worth pointing out that basically everybody in Israel now sees Netanyahu as the main impediment to a ceasefire deal. And that,
he is.
From both sides, like the families of the hostages, but also right-wingers who don't want a deal and want to occupy Gaza permanently. Yeah. Like it's clear that Netanyahu is rejecting concessions that his own team negotiated. And it's also clear to me that he made a choice not to come and deliver a ceasefire deal in this speech. He could have. Yeah, but he didn't want to for whatever reason. So, I mean, I think, Ben, the thing you keep hearing, the kind of background briefing line from, Ron Dermer and all these people around Netanyahu to the press is, this isn't 2015. This is not him, conspiring with Republicans to take a huge shot at Biden like he did with Obama back then. Like, do you believe him?
No, I don't believe him. I mean, nothing's different about Netanyahu. What's different is like the context is a little different, right? I mean, back then it was like Obama had a clear initiative, the JCPOA, that Netanyahu already publicly opposed, and he was kind of coming as a lobbyist against that deal. And so that was the context. This context is different. He's got an American president, Joe Biden, who, let's face it, has pretty much given him a blank check, so there's no Biden policy for him to come lobby against.
Right. Yeah.
He's just
being a dick.
He's coming to fortify himself at home this time.
And buck up with Trump, too.
And buck up. But he's coming here to basically show the Israeli public the last thing the last card he has to play beyond hanging on to the far right is playing the card of, hey, look, I can still get bipartisan support in the U.S. As much as you hate me, I'm the guy who knows how to play the Americans. Yeah. Watch me play the Americans, like a fiddle. And so I think it's about his politics back home, his politics with Trump and the MAGA caucus in the U.S. Congress. So it probably won't be as confrontational as 2015, but that's because what's he going to confront? Because Biden has been if Biden had stopped giving offensive military assistance, it might be different.
Yeah, Bibi is trying to make up things that Biden didn't give him. Quick thing before we go. So quick thing before we move on from this. The Houthi rebels were able to somehow hit Tel Aviv with a drone.
Almost hit
our
embassy.
Yeah, almost hit our embassy. It was like hundreds of feet from away. Somehow they got through all the Israeli defenses, missile defense systems. And then I saw a report in the Wall Street Journal about how Pentagon officials are demanding a stronger response to the Houthis. But again, like nothing we've done to date has deterred them. So I don't know, maybe we should try ending the war in Gaza.
Exactly.
But finally, Amir had one last message for President Biden specifically about how he could help Israel in his final days in office.
I understand that the president is not seeking re-election, and I want to encourage him to do everything he can in the 6 months that he's got left in office to bring back the hostages. This is the most important priority. This should be really the one legacy he can leave behind, that he did not leave office on January 20 when there were still innocent men and women in the hands of terrorists in the tunnels of Gaza. And he had a huge impact on the first hostage release deal in November, which brought us back dozens of people alive, many women and children. And he can still have an impact over here. And the pressure needs to be across the court on Netanyahu, on Qatar, in Egypt, of course, on the Hamas leadership, who are the most responsible for this atrocity. But everybody needs to feel the heat. And if one man can do it, it's Joe Biden.
Love that advice.
Yeah.
Especially with Americans being held.
And it's a great point, too, that like with Biden, he'll still obviously, do some campaigning when I'm out there. But like part of what he can do is try to close some accounts, right? When your presidency is coming to an end. And so getting to a ceasefire, getting the hostages returned, kind of getting Gaza in some kind of place where there's some rebuilding that's beginning, that would be something that I think will be a natural area of focus for the next 6 months. Probably getting some more aid to Ukraine, like these big things that they've been working on. I think, trying to kind of lead those in the best possible place. I'm sure that will be a huge focus for them.
And Trump will absolutely say, keep those hostages held in Gaza until I get to office, and then I will release them because I'm the only man who can do so.